Okay, I'm here with Sonny Swinhart. Sonny, you're better known as the Japanarchist, right? Uh, or formerly known as the Japanarchist, right?
Formerly,
So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'll always be Japanarchist. I
Okay.
don't know if I'll always
Yeah.
be known as Japanarchist.
Okay. Okay. So, briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. My name's Sonny Swinhart, formerly or currently or by some known as Japanarchist. And I've been in Japan now for about 20 years. I just had my 20-year Japan anniversary a couple months ago.
Well,
Um,
congrats.
Thank you very much. I guess originally from the United States, grew up in California, spent quite a bit of time in high school, college in Illinois, Chicago area, and then and then straight out to Japan. I've been living in this Aichi-ken or the Nagoya area for about 20 years now.
Right on, right on. And what originally motivated you to make the jump to come to Japan? Had you visited before, or did you just go in, jump off the deep end and go, or what's the story there?
Well, it was deep end. Like I
Yeah,
don't think I had ever been abroad before at that time. And maybe, maybe a drive down to Mexico or something, but
right.
I don't know if that counts. But I my original plan was to just be a sort of vagabond world traveler and just, go from country to country with a backpack sort of thing.
Yeah,
I had studied Japanese in college, which was kind of by happenstance. I was studying, I was sort of my major forced me to choose a foreign language. And I had studied French in high school and wasn't really interested in trying that again. And I wanted sort of a bigger challenge. So, so I thought, let's try Japanese. And so then when college came to an end, I thought, well, I'll just start my world tour in Japan.
right.
So then I found like a small job out here and thought, okay, I'll put a year in and then I'll move on to my next country.
Hmm.
And well, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Have you now? You seem to have made your roots in Japan. What other countries have you been to since coming here?
Um, I I rarely leave Nagoya, to be
Okay.
honest.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let's see. Yeah, actually, that's true. I've spent like I don't know a weekend in Seoul. I had a business trip last year in Shanghai. Um, I'll be doing a few more business trips, but around Asia and maybe Europe next year. But other than that, I haven't traveled much. I think I don't know what it is. Like there's something different about traveling in Asia,
Mm.
especially from Japan, where I don't know if the rest of Asia is really like Japan in any way.
Yeah. I mean, like you, I've been to Seoul
Hmm.
for about a week, and then I've been to Thailand, and you know, I've been to Southeast Asia, and it's very different than Japan.
Hmm.
Um, it's very the people are still friendly. I mean that's the similarities I got, but other than that, just the general attitudes for everything are completely different. At least in Thailand where I was.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I did backpacking for about a week down there and up in the mountains in the north part of Thailand. So um,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, it's a great country. I haven't haven't been to the south part yet. That's a bit more wild in a different way. Um,
Hmm.
but I've heard stories just from people I know how it is. Um,
Well, that's the sort of thing about Japan is and I've been mostly all around Japan
right.
for travel and whatnot, and it's not terribly different. I mean, there are some nuances if you down in Fukuoka versus Tokyo, and just general lifestyles a little different, but
Mm,
I think when I when I travel around Japan, it's a little bit, I guess, comforting, but also disappointing. That it's like, oh, it's the same shops down here, and
Yeah,
people are
still the
generally
Family
pretty
Mart,
similar.
still the Lawson,
Right,
the
right.
same sort of stuff, right? Yeah, I've been all over Honshu,
Mm,
the main island, but I have not traveled to like, Kyushu or Shikoku or Okinawa, Hokkaido.
mhm,
I haven't actually been to any of those places, and
mm,
it's definitely on my list to go. But yeah, I've been anywhere from Aomori down to Iwakuni, so
mm,
it's the tips of the whole place. So I've only briefly just traveled through Aichi and Nagoya, but I've
mm.
never stopped by there. So um, what how did you get a job there, and what exactly do you do? And have you changed careers throughout your time in Japan?
Well, yeah, definitely. When I first came to Japan, I just wanted to sort of get out of the States and sort of try new things and experience the world, as it were. Um, initially, I found a English teaching job in Aichi, in a small town, sort of in the outskirts of Nagoya.
Hmm.
And for some reason, they hired me over the phone and brought me out. And
Sounds legit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I got very lucky because it turned out to be legit, and
Okay.
it was a wonderful experience. And I found out years later that people often aren't that lucky.
Yeah, especially with the small town sort of gigs like that,
Mhm.
it's a crapshoot, really, So it's good. How long did you do that for?
I did that for about a year and a half,
Okay.
uh, and it was a great experience. And even if it wasn't, I think just my mindset and my youth was like, yeah, whatever. If it's terrible, then I'll leave and move on to the next thing. So
Right.
for me, it was a pretty low risk proposition.
Okay. Okay. And what did you move on to from there?
So then, I guess for the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I worked sort of eikaiwa work,
Hmm.
and then I did about 2 or 3 years of my own. I opened up sort of my own eikaiwa and
Okay.
did that. Um, that was really interesting because I really got to experience the entrepreneur side and running my own business and filing taxes and
Oh,
you
fun.
know
Yeah.
and
Everyone's
marketing and
favorite thing, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly. And so that was fun. I did that for a while, and then I ended up working at a high school for a while
hmm.
as sort of their I don't want to overstate it, but it's sort of leading their after school program.
Okay.
And yeah, that I don't know if leading it is the right word, but being a participant in that.
Right.
And then I did about 6 years doing business skills and teaching and management and lesson facilitation. So
So you had moved on from teaching English, conversational English, Eikaiwa, to more of the business sector. Now, was this aimed at still at the Japanese audience, or was it for foreigners coming into Japan, or what's the
this
transition there?
I think it was probably like 80-90% Japanese business people
Hmm.
who were either um, preparing to go abroad
Hmm.
for with their work with their companies, or those who would be, I guess, hosting or working with foreign people coming into Japan.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then a percentage of that was sort of training new employees.
Hmm.
Like every April or so, they have the Shinyu Shine, the new employee sort of flux, where they, all the companies, the big companies especially, they'll hire 500 people at a time right out of college, and none of those people know how to do anything,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in the business world. And it seems, Japanese colleges unfortunately aren't really preparing their students for the business world.
Hmm.
So they really don't know they don't know any business manner or really how to communicate with people, and how to conduct a meeting or give a presentation or do simple negotiation, or even respond to a client or boss in the appropriate way. We did a lot of training in developing those skills in people, and then
Hmm.
also preparing the materials and content for those types of lessons.
Right, right. Okay. And is that what you're currently doing as well?
No, then about I guess 2.5 years ago,
Mm.
I became the operations manager for Japan Mobility,
Okay.
a relocation company. We're based in Nagoya, but we cover all of Japan. And so now it's we help people move to Japan, basically. Help them
Interesting.
find a
Yeah.
home and prepare all the documentation they need for award registration, help them get settled in,
Hmm.
and convert their driver's license and all the things you would need to make a smooth, seamless move into Japan.
It's uh, Japanese run, or is it foreign run sort of business?
Our president is American,
Okay.
but I'd say probably, I'm not sure the percentage breakdown, but 70% of our staff is Japanese.
Okay. Okay.
So we and just about everybody is fully bilingual.
Nice.
And really it's interesting coming from education, the level of English skill I'm finding in the people I'm working with now is incredible
Yeah.
compared to where I was with actual like English teachers.
Right. Right.
Uh,
It is quite interesting how that is in Japan, especially.
mhm,
Yeah. Um, that's interesting. Like the a lot of people would find a lot of help in a company like this.
mhm,
I mean, you and I both came here without that sort of help. We just figured
mhm,
it out. But it's kind of cool that these companies like the one you work for now are
mhm.
coming up that actually, help people transition, get over here and transition into the country. So um, that's uh, that's really good service. How long has the company been around?
The company itself has been around for, I think, since 1995. So they've
Wow.
been doing
Okay.
this quite a while. And we originally started out helping English teachers sort of move in.
Hmm.
And then in around 2005 was the Aichi Expo.
Hmm.
That was a big deal down here. I find fewer and fewer people remember it these days.
Right. Yeah.
But that brought in a lot of businesses, and that's when the company sort of switched over into working directly, sort of a B2B company,
Okay.
working directly with businesses and helping them bring their people over and facilitate that move more smoothly. And then so I think that was the biggest shift for the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So um, now, how did you transition exactly from, you've laid out the steps from English teacher and then, helping teach, business
Hmm.
uh, to foreign or Japanese stuff, and then moving on to this. Like, was this just a natural progression, or did you sort of seek out these sorts of changes?
For me, like I've always been trying to sort of move up,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I haven't really defined what that means yet, and I
Yeah.
think I probably should start at some point. But for me, my previous job, with doing business, half of the job was managing our other trainers.
Hmm.
So I got a lot of experience and and knowledge from doing that. The whole hiring process and managing people and getting your team to work together and all those sort of things.
Mm.
And then also from I was sort of forced to learn business. Well, not forced to, but part of the job was to teach business. So as part of that, it enabled me to learn business more.
Right.
So I was always trying to study business concepts and negotiation styles and different like how to facilitate meetings and just all those sorts of things that are connected with business, so that I could effectively train people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in doing the research to train people to do it, I was able to sort of pick it up on my own and apply those to my previous job. And then when this opportunity came about, it was basically a management job. So I could transition into that. I think the challenge for me has been that I felt like I feel I have a strong expertise in education.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know, particularly adult education, and how to train people and facilitate a lesson and develop all that, and also trainers and give them and get other people on how to develop those skills. And then coming into relocation, this new industry is a big jump where I think in the past I've had to adjust my management style.
Okay.
Because in the past I was leading from a place of expertise.
Okay.
I say, don't do it like that, do it like this. I know because I've been there. I've been doing this for a number of years. So try this or whatever. But then I come into this industry where, like, I have to rely on the people that I'm managing to be the experts.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's it's interesting dynamic shift there,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So but generally you enjoy what you do now, and then moving up in that. Well, so.
Yeah, I think so. There are challenges, and I think particularly with our industry and our company, we the scope of what our service is so broad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been a challenge for me is how to aim my focus and how to aim my team's focus to make sure we're working, we're prioritizing correctly and not spinning our wheels and also dealing with the various personalities and dynamics of a very diverse team.
Right. That's cool. So, you had also mentioned that you took the entrepreneurial route for a bit and had your own school. What had you always sort of wanted to try something like that? And how long did that last? And what ended up making you, I wouldn't say give up, but sort of shift from doing that and pursuing that route?
I think. Maybe I thought that sort of everybody wants to do that, right? You go to whatever company you're in, you're like, especially when you're younger, and you're like, oh, these guys are doing it wrong. I know better. I should be doing this.
Yeah.
So I always had that sort of attitude, and then I had an opportunity to sort of jump in and do that myself, and I really enjoyed it because of course you get all the freedom of being the boss along with all the responsibility and stress.
Yeah.
And the pay was nice. Yeah. Because I think I did pretty well at it. I think the challenge that I had was going to the next level. I wanted to go. I wanted to get out. And it wasn't the type of teaching that I really wanted to do long term.
Okay.
And I had trouble sort of transitioning out of it.
Okay.
My plan was to, I'll train other teachers. I'll start stepping back and I'll just sort of watch people do the work and I'll manage it. And and I think the struggle with that was that I had trouble making that transition.
Okay.
I think a lot of my students were studying because they wanted to study with me.
Yeah.
I, and and I was trying to build a system of teaching, and I think I probably inserted myself into the system too much,
Okay.
which is, I think, I don't know, thinking back, it's probably why people liked it. I think I was able to connect with people with that business, but then handing it off to somebody wasn't able to have that same connection with people, and
Right.
so I saw that as I think at the time I didn't have the sort of business knowledge or um, the whatever it takes
Yeah.
to really say, okay, it has to. I never had the feeling that this has to happen,
Okay. Yeah.
and
So yeah.
I think an entrepreneur needs that. I think you need that. This must happen. This is my lifeline. This is my blood. I'm gonna make this product, this business, this service. I'm gonna make it work.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have that. I just sort of wanted a company. I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to run things.
Yeah.
And so then I had an opportunity to sort of step away from that, and that's what happened.
Closed up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And how long did that go on for?
That
How long
was
did you, yeah.
that was about 2.5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was a great time. The other thing that's tough about running your own business is the what is it the non-stopness of it, the like 24/7
Mm-hmm.
work that it takes.
Always on, right?
Yeah, so everything and just sort of the pressure of having to do everything, and just there's no break. Like there's always room to improve, and so that's again where that you have to love it,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't, you got to get out.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it takes, there's a lot of people that they see the lifestyle and they say, I can do that or I want that, but they don't realize, yeah, with all the the benefits of being your own boss and having that freedom also comes the 24/7 always on, always having to put out fires, so to speak. Like
Hmm.
it's the stress and everything on top of that. People don't realize that that's all part of the same ball.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. Going in, doing a little bit of that myself too. It's just sort of interesting. You see the different aspects. It's not always like grass is always greener, but at the same
Hmm.
time, you just understand like, yeah, this is cool. I have the freedom, but there's the other end of it that
Hmm.
are you sure you want to get into this? That's the feeling.
Well, really, and I think ultimately that's what freedom is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
freedom isn't just like free stuff. You
exactly.
know,
Yeah,
freedom is a burden, in a real way. Like freedom is um, freedom is responsibility, right?
yeah,
And so you can't really
exactly.
have one without out the other, and so it, it's if you don't want that, then that's fine too.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things I enjoy about what I'm doing now is that I sort of have a position where I can or I have to make a number of decisions, and so I'm enabled to a certain amount of freedom and that opportunity of choice, but also sort of the burden of it.
yeah, yeah. And interesting you mentioned about freedom and responsibility. So we briefly touched on it at the beginning. You had this moniker of Japanarchist. Where did that come from, and how did you come about creating this?
Okay. I don't think I've ever talked about this. I don't think anybody ever asked me. that question, which is
Yeah.
kind of, I thought I would get more questions on it and it would be more controversial.
Right.
In fact, initially the name for the channel was going to be Japanarchy.
Okay.
The concept of of anarchy rather than ist,
Yeah.
which would be the person, which would be me. Over
Right.
time, I think I like Japanarchist better, but and I chose the name because I'm an anarchist who lives in Japan.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it seems pretty simple, right? But
yeah.
yeah. So, would you mind getting into that? Like, how did you become an anarchist,
Hmm.
and how is living life as an anarchist in a society like Japan, which is, very statist to say the least,
Hmm. Hmm.
how do you come to it, and then how do you balance that, you know, with your way of thinking?
Well, I think for me, how I got into it was kind of just by chance. And it's hard to say right now because I really haven't thought about it in the political sense recently at all.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's one of those things like I got very into when I sort of discovered it and enjoyed trying to have arguments with people or discussions
Hmm.
and you know when you find a new political philosophy or idea you want to share it and
Right.
convince people
Yeah.
and all that.
Hmm.
I don't know. I've realized over the years, like I'm not a great convincer, and I'm not going to change the world in that way. I can have an impact over the people, in my immediate vicinity, but like I'm not gonna. I don't know if anybody has that. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, I think it started. I had a commute for work that was, I think, an hour and 40 minutes uh, each way. And so I was just like consuming podcasts, and it was when podcasting was a fairly new thing. And so it's just the podcasts I found that were regularly updated and talking about political topics were more libertarian
Yeah.
and leaning in that direction. Um,
What would you mind sharing what those are? Are they still around, or
um, I think for me, and I don't listen to them anymore. I almost don't even want to say what they are because what's happened, and this is a terrible thing in some libertarian circles and especially anarchic
anarchic?
anarchic circles,
Yeah.
is that there's sort of there's
A shift
a
to a different philosophy in a way.
well, there's been a shift in a number of people, but there's also this undertone of racism,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I've seen it too.
and
Hmm.
and sometimes I think sometimes it's an unfair attack, and sometimes it's like it's just uncomfortable at the very least,
Yeah.
and I want no part of that. And so there's been a few people who I used to like enjoy listening to
Hmm.
that like just recently, I don't know if they're actually racist, but they say a lot of things that sound pretty racist.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
and not
yeah.
just racist, but bigoted or, against whatever group or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
and and as an which is confusing for me for because I think sort of anarchists are not supposed to be grouping people at all. Like I think
Yeah.
that goes against what that libertarian
Hmm.
mindset.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I kind of did, went down a similar way, listening to podcasts and everything. But I saw the shift as well,
Hmm.
starting a few years ago, and I said, I can't. I tried to get out of um, being lumped into any groups. That's why I started getting into this philosophy, because it was about freedom and individualism and things, just living your own life and not interfering in other people's lives. And
Hmm.
that's always been the core of my belief. And so when I saw this kind of shift, I could see the sort of not necessarily brainwashing, but a lot of it became a little bit cultish in some ways.
Hmm.
Uh, and I just like, no, I'm not getting involved with that. I'm just going to stay true to what I am and just be an individual. So I kind of like shed that label as well, and I'm just an individual, like that. I'm just me. I don't. There's some people I still agree with and listen to, and then there's some like I've just cut out just because like you,
Hmm.
I can't handle that. Doesn't gel with me,
Hmm.
So I've kind of shed the label of all that as well.
And me too, and that's one reason why I'm even tentative about saying anarchist or whatever, because I don't know if number one it's not consistently defined among in people's minds. If you say dentist, everyone knows what you're talking about.
Right.
If you say anarchist, I think people think of Molotov cocktails and things like that, and I'm also fine with that. I'm not fine with. I'm fine with people thinking whatever they want to think,
Right.
because like I said, I'm not actively putting these ideas out there. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
I'm fine with abandoning the label.
Mm.
Um, I think just generally that, um, just to sort of define what that philosophy is, so that I don't get lumped in with sort of the the destruction anarchist type, which I
Hmm.
think most people think of when they think of that, is just the sort of non-aggression principle,
Hmm.
and just the idea that just the very general idea that you shouldn't initiate violence or aggression on people who haven't done anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, just treat people how you want to be treated. Golden rule in a way. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And
Yeah.
um, it's just it seems very simple, but a
Hmm.
lot of people seem to have an issue with it. Just the only the only violence is to defend yourself or defend the people you love,
Hmm.
in a way, but never, coerce or steal or, aggressively attack
Hmm.
anyone and defend defend yourself when they try to do it to you. That's
Hmm.
it. So I just don't understand how people can't um, sort of wrap their head around that concept.
Well, I think it's tough for people. People have a lot of investment in politics. I think
Hmm.
that's one thing is, you got to choose your team, especially, these days where it's so divisive. And so, people like, it is hard, you talk about the racism thing, there being, or whatever discrimination, like laws against discrimination and things like that. Technically by the non-aggression principle, if you haven't aggressed against that type of person, then you're okay. So the non-aggression principle would say it's okay to be racist or or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just using like race as an example, but so I think it's complicated. And so, when someone says we don't want those types of people or that type of activity happening,
Hmm.
and you say no, it's okay. I mean, that's not a great stance to have either.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it does get more complicated than that, and than just simply having a principle. That's why I think there's different aspects to consider with this, and there is the political aspect, and like what laws there should be or not be, and all that. And for me, like I said, I don't know if I have much control over that. And so I don't. I try to apply freedom and personal freedom and encouragement of that freedom in my personal life.
Hmm.
So with my friends, family, and the staff I manage, that they and the people I work with and just everybody I interact with in my life, I I I allow them the freedom to be who they are.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I think that's the only scope I have personally. And I don't know if I'm being clear on what that means, and I'm not sure it's totally clear in my head either. So,
Well, I mean, I get the gist of it. I understand.
hmm
But you know, it goes back to that sort of individualism, you know, like you have your belief that, you know, you want freedom above all else, but that also means responsibility, and you want to give others that same thing. What I've come to realize though is a lot of people are comfortable being told what to do,
hmm
and there's not really there's inherently nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not a moral thing to, it's just it's a personal choice. What I find is where it becomes sort of sketchy is when they try to, they think, no, everyone should be told what to do,
hmm
and I'm going to vote or make sure I promote a philosophy where everyone is controlled by this common um, idea, right? Like just trying to tell people what to do with their lives. That's where I think it kind of gets sketchy, you know. Like,
Well,
yeah,
well,
you're free to believe it, but just don't make me do it, you know. So
well, that's where the disconnect or the inconsistency happens, in my opinion,
yeah,
is that, like, okay, you believe that people should be told what to do, so, but you're gonna, people should be controlled, but
hmm,
you're gonna control, like there's a disparity of power there, I
right,
think,
yeah,
and I think on the flip side, you know, if you talk to I don't know, fascists or or socialists, they'll say,
fascist, yeah,
well, I think
yeah,
they'll say the exact same thing. You know, they're
mm,
saying, you know, that's why we need these rulers or laws or however you want to construct it is to balance out that power disparity.
okay,
I guess for me, I don't know how to control a society. I don't know what's best for a society, how it's
yeah,
best for them to operate or do. And so, and not only do I not know, I have no means of enacting that that opinion.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, as a personal thing, like I've always kind of been into politics in a way, and that for me now it's just more of entertainment. It's
hmm
just an entertaining thing. It's like watching WWE or something. Like I just get entertained by seeing both sides fight. While but I sympathize more with like just looking at it all from the outside and just seeing it as a, you know, as a show instead of anything that really matters in my life. You know, because
hmm
like you, I just try to live my life in as individually and personally as I can, and for me, you know, in terms of following laws, you know, anything that's going to get me put in a cage, if it's a non-violent thing, um, you know, I just look at the, like, I disagree with it, but, you know, I value my personal freedom that I have now. So if I do this certain thing within this society, that's going to give me these consequences. So I still make the personal choice, you know, to follow laws, even if I disagree with them, just because of the consequences behind it,
hmm
right? Now there are obviously moral things that not all not all laws are moral, but not everything that's legal is moral. But at the same time, not everything that's illegal is immoral either. So you just have to find your way within that society. But I looked at politics from the outside, and I just think I could never get into that. People would always tell me like, "You have all these opinions. You should run for office." I say, "That's the last fucking thing I want to do is run for office. I don't want to tell anyone what to do with their life or how they should spend their money or anything, you know."
hmm
So I'm just find entertainment in it, and
hmm
that's where I stand, you know.
Well, I also sort of wonder, like, I think it's clearly entertainment now, or on some level, right?
Mm,
We
yeah.
You just look at the states with, you know, the phenomenon that is Trump, and
Reality show president, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not only that, just and the phenomenon that is the Trump movement too, which
Yeah.
is quite interesting as well. And just those two things happening at the same time. Um, like you'd think one side would grow up, like
It's actually becoming more immature the longer it goes on. Like both sides are, it seems 10 years ago,
mhm.
even more than that, like in the mid 2000s, maybe because I was younger then, but you had George Bush and the war in Iraq and all that, and everything just seemed a little bit more on a higher level. Like people hated Bush and Cheney for what they were doing, but they seemed separate. And now it's, I guess maybe because social media is involved too, but everyone's involved, and it just seems that the level of maturity and the separateness of that's the government and that's us. But now people are, Trump's down there with the people. Bernie Sanders is down there with the people. It's very populist, and because of that, populism plus the internet has given people just more of a say in it, and it just the whole thing just feels immature. I don't know how if that makes any sense, but it's completely different viewpoint of the world that I had than just 15 years ago. You know.
Well, it's strange. I saw something even today, or maybe last night. I think it was about the State of the Union, and it was
Hmm.
like, why'd you do that immature thing to some? I think it was Nancy Pelosi or something, but
Yeah.
um, it could have been anyone on either side. And it was like, well, he did this thing, and it was just like, it
What
was that
about
that
it?
like,
Well, what about Hillary? What about Trump? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
and it was just some childish, immature act, and nobody is nobody's sort of rising above it. And I think that's probably why everyone's enjoying it so much.
Yeah. That's what's entertaining. There's
and
no
it
adult in the room. Is what it feels like.
and it seems like the Trump side people are enjoying things a lot more.
Yeah.
They seem to be laughing quite a bit, and the anti-Trump people seem to be quite angry.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The level of vitriol coming from the anti-Trump people is they take it serious, and they're pissed and they're angry, and
Hmm.
and that doesn't come off well because I mean personally I kind of tend to at least socially agree more with the anti-Trump people in terms of personal freedoms, but they're getting to the point where they're so angry that they want to force that belief on other people when the pro-Trump people are just sitting back laughing, like just seeing how it's like it's all a joke, like you're so serious about this, and because of that, we're just gonna poke you a little bit more and laugh at you, and it's immature all around.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's how he, that's how he got into the office in the first place. I think was just people were kind of like, this is kind of funny.
hmm,
Let's try this out.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And in a sense, I look back and from a anarchist point of view, Trump, everything about Trump does not fit with that philosophy. But at the same time, he is kind of an anarchist in his own way, that he's just coming in to fuck shit up, so to
mhm.
speak, and to kind of break the system, which he kind of has. Like the political world is completely different now and will forever be different now because he's come in and changed that whole dynamic. You know, um, people viewed government differently when it was under Bush, Obama, Clinton than they do after Trump. Now
Mhm.
it's no holds barred. The president can call people nicknames and say bullshit and call other countries shitholes, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if he's cheated on his wife with a porn star. Like none of that, all of that's out there now,
Mhm.
and there's no going back to being like, oh, the president is a dignified person that you should respect. Like
Well, yeah, that whole veil has been removed. And I used to love watching West Wing and those kind of shows that are like
yeah,
the president has entered the room and there's this reverence of the title and the position, and that's all gone.
yeah,
And it'll probably come back at some point, but I don't know. But I'm actually, I thought he would change things more. Like at the end of the day, he's operating as a politician. Like he's doing many of the things that politicians do, and so I thought initially that when he became president, he would actually sort of change the system itself rather than
Yeah.
just the image.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how much power he actually has, but I would say what I'm surprised that nobody's talking about is that it shouldn't matter. Like the president should be a very limited power position.
Yeah.
And so if he has crazy ideas and he's a buffoon, it shouldn't really matter all that much because he wouldn't be able to do much with that.
Yeah.
And I think what we've seen in the past, probably, 20 or 25 years is an increase in the power of the presidency. And I think that's a potentially dangerous thing. And that's what I'm surprised from the left and the anti-Trump people are not saying. Well, it's not surprising because of the way they think, but that they're not saying, hey, like let's limit it what this position can do, not just this person, but let's put a limit on the power of the presidency so that this crazy guy can't do it. But they seem to be doubling down and saying that no, this is such an important position. We got to get him out and put in someone who's more powerful and something like that. And that's happening on both sides too. But it's
Yeah. So it's interesting. Just I kind of it's interesting looking at it from Japan, living in Japan, because it really is on the outside. You're like outside of the bubble, so to speak. I can't imagine what it's like living in that every day with the constant media coming into all the people talking about it. I mean, of course, I visit the States a lot, and I went there twice last year. It's been a total of about three to 4 weeks, and maybe it was just because of the people I was with, but I really didn't feel like too many people were. It doesn't really affect everyone's day-to-day life, but from the outside, it almost seems like that's all everyone talks about over there, you know? So
I think so. It's sort of that social media culture, right? It's strange. How long have you been in Japan?
this year will be 12 years.
Okay. So when I came to Japan, it was quite different. It was much more difficult to live here and easier in some ways. But like when I moved in Japan, there was basically no internet. Like there was an internet, but it didn't really function like it functions now. There was no YouTube. There was no Amazon. It was a challenge there was no Netflix. There was like, when I came to Japan, I brought 5 VHS tapes with me. And I watched them over and over and over. And then I discovered the rental shop, and I'd rent VHS tapes. And so like the challenge of living here was quite different. I wasn't exposed to American politics or American entertainment. Whereas now it's like, I might as well live in America. It's kind of like I used to not be able to get peanut butter or deodorant. Now, just get online and
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's changed so much in 20 years. I mean, I remember, I moved here 12 years ago, and even then it was much more limited than it is now. The cell phones were still, as they call garake, those really old flip phones. And even I thought, wow, these are actually cooler phones than what we have back in the States, because you can send emails and, but then shortly after that is when iPhone came out, and it just steamrolled from there. But no, I remember just getting internet even set up in my first apartment was a month-long ordeal. It was like you had to set up appointments, and it took weeks to get it turned on. And I remember having to find what spotty Wi-Fi they actually did have in my city to connect. So I almost felt like I was disconnected from the world for a good month or two, just because the internet situation here was absolutely nothing, you know?
My first internet connection took 3 months.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll be there in April. I was like, what are you talking?
Yeah.
Insane. They had to like dig up the ground and put a cable. It was insane. And the connection now, it's incredible how I can have all those comforts. So living in Japan, like as a foreigner, is it's much easier to stay in our bubble now as well,
Yeah.
and just eat the same food we used to eat to a limited extent, but get all the same products, consume the same entertainment, with movies, video games, TV shows, whatever entertainment you consume. It's much. It's a different world now. I don't know
Right.
if I would still be here, um, if it was still the way it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's definitely a different world just since I've been here as well. So you mentioned earlier, you know, when you came, there was no YouTube, right? But YouTube came about in 2005, I believe, and
Hmm.
so you actually had, or still have, but you have a YouTube channel, but
Yes.
it hasn't been updated recently, right? But
Right.
that's actually how I found you was through that, and
Hmm.
you know, I found some of them the videos very entertaining. So
Hmm.
what was your motivation to start that, and the types of videos that you did? Because they're
Why
very different than the normal living in Japan videos. So
the I'm trying to I don't know why, because I'm not a I don't like being in the spotlight at all.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
there were things I wanted to do, and I wanted a creative outlet. Actually, now I'm remembering, my dream, one of my dreams back in the day was to do sort of voiceover work.
Okay.
And so I was trying to be creative in that way, and I thought YouTube would be an avenue that I could sort of practice that sort of thing, and still at least be in a genre that was close to that.
Right.
And my initial videos were just sort of me being goofy, talking about things. I think my first real video was like comparing grape and orange Fanta,
Yeah.
and which one's
Yeah.
better, and something like that. Um, then I think as that evolved, I started to get more into videos that were, I guess you could call them animation.
Hmm.
If you want to insult a real animator, uh, but little doodles and pictures, and so I think I much prefer those,
Yeah.
because it's not me on camera. I kind of like to just stay in the background and not be on camera so much. The problem is it's so much more work.
Right. Right. There's a lot more editing and
Yeah,
animating, so to speak. Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them have, you know, racked up quite a few views. You know, they're quite popular videos. It was because of how much work you had to put in, is why they've kind of stopped, or did you just lose the passion for it, or
The There's a couple factors. One
yeah.
is when I started my previous job. That kind of killed it. The job
Okay.
I had before that, and this is what, 2 jobs ago.
Hmm.
Um, I had I basically I was at work for 8 hours a day or whatever. Worked about two of those,
Hmm.
and so it was just me basically writing all day. And so I was able to write scripts and content, and I was just able to brainstorm and uh, just kind of think about videos all day.
Right.
So, and I didn't realize how much time I was actually spending on writing those videos. So then I got like a real job where they expected me to like think all day and use my brain and actually do things. And and I just wasn't able to put the time into it.
Gotcha.
And so I put out a few videos after that, and it's really hard.
Hmm.
And then as far as like picking it back up, now it's been so long, it's like, okay, the one, like, and I've been thinking about coming back and making more videos. Um, but it's like that first video has to be worthwhile.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like I have like 15 ideas of things I want to make, but none of them are that like I'm back video. And
Mhm.
at this point, I don't know if anyone really cares, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you just have to do, especially with YouTube now, you have
Mhm.
to make it because you want to make it because um, people who are popular on YouTube are popular, but even then, the way it's monetized and stuff, you can't really, unless you're extremely popular, you're not really going to make a lot of money or get anything from it. So
Mhm.
it's actually kind of come full circle in a way because it started
Mhm.
out people just making videos just because they want to make them without any goal in mind,
Mhm.
and then the trend became make it to be popular, to be a
Mhm.
famous YouTuber, right? And now the algorithms are so messed up, like it's so hard to become a popular YouTuber. You might as well just make stuff because you want to, just because
Mhm.
you like making it,
Mhm.
and that's kind of cool how it's kind of come around full circle in a way.
Yeah, and that's how it was for me the whole time. Like I, I'd spend I'd spend a lot of time on the videos, and if you watch them, it doesn't look like it. But, um, they actually take a lot of time, and I'd love just, hitting that upload button
Hmm.
and then just waiting. And some of them did very well, and some of them did less than very well. But either way, I just loved the sort of anticipation and the excitement of working on a project, having it finished and putting it out there,
Right.
and then just watching the reaction, or whatever small reaction there was. um, that that was really exciting for me, and I do
Yeah.
miss that part of the creative process.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So at the same time, you're saying, oh, if I come back, I want to. It has to be just right. But that also I've found with anything, that sort of thinking holds you back in a way.
Yeah.
Like, well, I can't do it quite yet because I want it to be just how I want it. And oftentimes that's what holds you back from ever getting it out, you know?
It's never gonna be perfect,
Hmm.
or even very good. If you look at I don't know, you look at Star Wars. George Lucas is still trying to tweak those.
Yeah.
Like 30 years later, he's like, what if we added more characters in here? Like, it's
Yeah.
done, man. Let it go.
Yeah.
Um, and um, I discovered something a number of years ago that was like the sort of folly of the perfectionist is like, number one, it's never gonna get there.
Yeah.
There is no perfect.
Hmm.
And then also, like doing something half-assed is, there's something to be said for putting out something that's proper and good, and like really as close to perfect as it can be. But there's also something to be said for just getting the job done, right?
Hmm.
And just getting it out.
Yeah.
And that's YouTube, man.
Hmm.
Like, to a large extent, it's like
Yeah.
and so I think if I do come back, it's gonna have to be like that in a big way. Just like, just do it. I mean,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
you'll still get the that reward of having completed.
Right. Exactly. And that's what's held me back so much too. I used to my channel used to be completely different years ago, and actually had some videos that became not popular, but they had a lot of views, um, and then I just sort of lost the motivation to do any of it, and
Hmm.
I just deleted everything, right? Um, and there's some videos I regret deleting because I still go hiking a lot, and I still record my hikes, and I actually had some really nice hiking videos
Mm.
that I got rid of, and so um, they're lost, but I can always just go back and do it because they're still here. The
Mm.
mountains are still there. But um, I had, some tutorials on studying Japanese or,
Mm.
um, different things like that got quite a few hits, but that's not who I am anymore. Like, I could never, I think what I was trying to do, I was trying to be something that I really wasn't,
Hmm.
just to try and get views. I'm like, that's not where my heart is in it. So I just said, fuck it, and then, got rid of it. But now I actually have a goal, not really a goal, but I have a reason to be putting out the content that I want. And even though it's not as popular as it used to be, for me, it's just the joy of doing things like this, doing the hikes, just whatever I want to record and just put it out there.
Hmm.
And if people find entertainment in it, awesome. If not, then at least I know that I've got that part of me out and not have to worry how perfect it is.
So is that what it is for you? Just is that the reason? Just to get that that whatever out?
Yeah, I've had a lot of different things to, I paint, I draw, there's a lot of different avenues I take to get whatever that is out. And doing these sorts of conversations, I genuinely enjoy just talking to different people on these conversations. And um, I talk to people who I find interesting. And then I put it out there, and then if other people also find it interesting, I'm like, awesome, that's cool. At least I've shared that with the world.
Mm.
So I find for me, it's easier to do this than to just point the camera at myself because I always felt awkward and just like I don't know what to say.
Hmm.
But if I have someone to talk with and discuss things, it's much better and it's much more entertaining and it actually has value, I think, in that, at least from my perspective.
And I don't know if I think maybe in the past that would be sustainable or could be somewhat popular on YouTube,
Hmm.
but now there's so much content out there that if you're not at least genuine with yourself,
Hmm.
I think it's clear and you're not going to get any sort of audience.
Right.
Like you, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people doing what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Just like that's not you. Like, why are you making that type of video or that sort of content? Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't suit you, and you're not going to be able to keep that up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, but that's just been my kind of the road I've been going down in general, not just with YouTube. So, I mean, this podcast is just part of what I put out on YouTube. Um, my main audience is actually on podcast apps and downloads for that.
Hmm.
But I just want to have it go out on as many avenues as I can just to reach a larger audience, right?
Hmm.
But just in everything in my life, though, I just want to just be more real and authentic and true to what I am and not try to pretend to be anything that I'm not. And when I was started YouTube, it still sort of felt like I was just showing what I thought other people wanted to see and not what was really there.
That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it sounds like just be yourself, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, geez, who am I? Whoa,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's like that Alan Watts quote, like, "Who are you? Who are you really?" Like
mm,
it's just, you sit and think like, well, I don't know. A lot of people go through life just faking around everyone, wearing a mask, and
hmm.
um, I used to do it, and I was just miserable. I couldn't. I mean, I would go home and just feel like, "Ugh, why can't I just be myself?" And once I just started that, all the stress went away, and actually I became a happier person, and I, you know, was able to make more friends. And it just once you just don't care and
Hmm.
just be yourself, at least from my perspective, everything else just becomes much easier instead of having to pretend all the time. Yeah.
And it's not lying per se, right? It's
Right.
just this sort of internal dishonesty
Hmm.
that or inconsistency maybe that
Yeah.
I think it's really I think when people really understand themselves or are really genuine, it shows very clearly. And I think we know those people who we're fans of, or in our personal lives,
Hmm.
that are just genuine people.
Yeah.
And it's not that the other people are liars, but it's just, oh, this person gets it.
Yeah.
It's tough to do. It's tough to be that kind of person.
Hmm. Hmm. Because I think people are just afraid of others' opinions. If they have a differing opinion about something, they'll worry about how that affects them socially, or in that regard. And I get it. I understand that that way of thinking. But I mean, now it's just for me, my life's happier. I say this is what I believe, and if you don't agree with it, that's cool. You're free to disagree, but I'm not going to change who I am. And
Hmm.
that just makes life smoother and happier for me. Because
Hmm.
you're right, it's like an internal incongruity or inconsistency there. So yeah, yeah,
Well, it's also tough to, because you also have to change. Like you have to be
yeah,
open-minded
exactly.
and be willing to change your opinions, or change the way you act in order to, to evolve and improve.
Right.
Uh, so it is that balance of, okay, how, like, do I, how much do I change, and what is me, and all those
Yeah.
internal questions that can be, that can be difficult for people to answer. But I think generally, once you find, once it clicks for you, and I found that in different aspects of my life. Once something like that clicks, then I don't have to think about it. It's just okay.
Right.
I'm clear. I'm in this sort of flow state, and just
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned before that you practice jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? And like how is that finding a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym in Japan and you know
Mm.
in that whole world within
Mm.
Japanese society?
Well, actually, just before we go on, your video looks like it's frozen on my end.
Really?
Yeah,
Um,
but
it's fine on this end, so we
okay,
can just keep going. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I let's see. At the time, this is probably about 3 years ago when I
Mhm.
started, and I I have done, I guess back in high school and college, I did various types of martial arts, and karate or karate, or whatever you want to call it. And I did those for, like, on and off for a few years. And I guess before I was doing jujitsu, I was doing a lot of, I was working out a lot, and doing a lot of running, and doing a lot of body weight training, and I was pretty fit, and it was getting kind of boring because it was all, just for no reason. It was just like, I'm feeling really healthy, I'm feeling strong, and I have a lot of stamina, and I'm not using it in any way.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of use it, and I've always been interested in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know at the time. I didn't think it was possible in Japan. Like, it's,
Yeah.
like, I'm sure Japan has jujitsu, but not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is a totally different thing. And so I just assumed it wouldn't be happening here. So I started to look into local judo places, and I kind of wanted to do judo, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And then, just in looking for a school, I found a very local Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. And it turns out that, like, actual Japanese jiu-jitsu, I haven't seen a school anywhere. I don't even know if it exists. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
everything's BJJ. So the school I found is amazing. It's really fun, and it's sort of a local place. In fact, it's run out of a community center, so it's not even its
Hmm.
own proper dojo. but it's become bigger and bigger over the past couple years. And the instructor is great. The people are great. What I love about it is that I don't know what my priority of doing it is, but there's so many benefits. Like whether it's the health benefit
Hmm.
of you know, the workout is very intense. Lots of sweat and it's super fun,
Hmm.
and it's also just great camaraderie with the other guys that are there, and I've made some great friends doing it.
Hmm.
And then there's this sort of self-defense aspect.
Right.
Um, I do get black eyes from time to time, quite a few
Yeah.
injuries.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why. I think I tend to get I don't know. People at work are concerned. Um,
Right. You come in all bruised up and yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't know if having a black eye makes you look tough or weak, but
Yeah.
it's just incidental. No
Hmm.
one's actively trying to punch me. I hope.
Right. Right. Yeah. Have you ever gotten seriously injured through training though? Because there is, some legit injuries you can get from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
I think generally it's probably about as safe as like a basketball club.
Okay.
That would be my impression. Like I'm sure if I played as much basketball or whatever as much as I did jujitsu, then I would have like a lot of ankle and knee injuries and like and you know, occasional elbow to the face or something like
Hmm.
that. You know, that any contact sport would have that and those injuries. So I haven't seen the statistics, but that's my impression. I mean, we try to roll pretty safely.
Okay.
And so the injuries I have been sort of incidental. Now, when someone's trying to, you know, choke you unconscious, the
Yeah.
incidental injuries can happen. Um, I had a pretty big back injury quite recently. Um, that's starting to heal up pretty well. I've had some like a lot of joint injuries, a lot of finger and my toes are hurting.
Toes, your toes are hurting. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep stubbing a toe and things like
Mhm.
that. But nothing for me has been too serious, and I've seen a couple big shoulder injuries just in my immediate circle. But other than that, I haven't seen anything or been injured too much. I think my back's kind of messed up anyway from other things.
Right.
So I think it's that, and you know, like I said, I don't know if it might be, but I don't know if it's more dangerous than any other contact sport.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people have, it's especially in Japan, but in general, even though Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is becoming more popular, it's still sort of I wouldn't say fringe, but it's still not a really well known to the mainstream, like
Hmm.
what it's all about, right? So
Hmm.
just people within the martial arts world or MMA world or whatever tend to know more about it. But
Hmm.
um, uh, yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions as well. So it's
I
it's
think,
good clearing that up about the safety in regards of that too.
yeah, and just to like I guess clarify what it is, because I think a lot of people don't know. Like whenever
Mhm.
I've mentioned it, they're like, oh, that's like karate or whatever. But it's basically, I don't know. I describe it as wrestling. It's basically
Mhm.
wrestling. There's no punching or kicking, and it's wrestling with joint locks and chokes.
Yeah, yeah. So um, have you said you've been doing it for about 3 years, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What belts have you achieved, or are you just going at the pace that you want to go at?
Well, I think
Hmm.
everybody goes at the pace they go at. Like
Yeah.
and I think jujitsu tends to not have a strong, I don't know how to say this, like a strong emphasis on belts.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think jujitsu has a very clear delineation of the belts.
Yeah.
Like if you see somebody or you roll with somebody who's a certain belt, it's pretty easy to tell where they are.
Right. Right.
Like if I roll with a guy who's my size, I know if he's a white belt or a blue belt or like a purple belt.
Right.
And I think at my level, like the difference from black and brown is a little hard to tell because
Yeah.
they're up here.
Yeah.
I have a blue belt. I think I might be getting close to purple, but that's not for me to decide.
Right.
But um,
And for not to sorry to interrupt, but it's interesting you make that distinction about how, you know, people aren't really belt focused, but
mhm,
they still earn them, right? But not to disparage other martial arts, but like something like karate,
mhm.
you the goal is just to get to the top. And you know, I've met many black karate black belts that I go, they just get to it by just doing was it the is it katas or something? They just pass a certain test.
Hmm.
But with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's like you actually have to physically pass, you know, certain steps, or you know, to you have to. It's kind of more. It seems like you have to fight for getting what you want. You know.
Yeah, and I think it can be hard to define what those belts are, but I've
Mhm.
seen other martial arts where, um, you know, uh, and maybe it's not just martial arts, like not just karate, but like
Mhm.
there's 15 different types of karate, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
and it all depends on the school and whatnot, but. Um, I think typically a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu takes 10 plus years to get.
Right.
Um, a, a and so there's not a lot of emphasis on belts, I think, but they also I think mean something. Um, I think having a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is the equivalent of being a doctor in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Like
Right.
that's the level that's like expert level.
Mhm.
I tend to equate the belts to like degrees in say physics,
Okay.
whereas like a blue belt would be a associate's degree, and then you get a purple belt. You have your bachelor's, then you get your brown belt. That's your master's, and then the black belt is your doctorate
Right.
in like a difficult subject like physics. So whereas if you say if you have a bachelor's degree in physics, you can you know uh, really beat anybody, any regular person in physics.
Right.
So,
Right.
but it's
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
not.
someone who has even a blue belt is much more adept and knowledgeable and everything than just a noob that just comes into it. You know, I mean, it's
Mhm,
night and day. But at the
mhm.
same time, it's the same between a blue and a black. You know, it's like there's no contest, right? So
No
it's
contest.
just yeah, it's just you the level of knowledge the black belt has. Like they can almost predict what anyone under them is going to do next. You know, it's kind of like a chess game almost too in your mind. You know.
It's insane the level of black belts. I've met and rolled with a handful, and like it's ridiculous their skill level. Like
Yeah.
the amount of effort they're putting out, you know, doing my darndest, and they're just like moving a pinky, and
Yeah.
it's incredible.
It,
Like, and it takes extensive training to get to that level.
right. Now, uh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really like the lineage matters, right? About how who you train with.
Mhm.
So if people are looking to find that here or anywhere,
Mhm.
um, how would you suggest they go about finding a legit place, and how can they find out if it's legit?
That's a tough question. Like I can only speak for Nagoya.
Okay.
myself, or maybe more generally, but I don't know. I think generally the community of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is very. I think it's generally intertwined. So
Hmm.
one, you're not going to have an isolated dojo with another and another isolated dojo. Like guys from both places are going to know each other and be interacting.
Right. Right.
So if you're phony, you're going to get called out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think in this area, any popular place is going to be pretty good.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um, and then I think a lot of it though is making sure the culture of the place matches your culture
Hmm.
or your personal preference rather.
Right.
So if you're a diehard competitor and you want to become a professional MMA fighter, you want to go to a place that sort of supports that attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you just want a good workout and make some friends and learn some self defense, then there are those places as well. And then there's most of the places I've seen and that I've been to because uh, one of the things that we do a lot at our school is we visit other schools. And I think that's what's pretty
Yeah.
cool that I didn't experience when I was in karate or taekwondo or anything. Everything was very segmented. And I don't know, maybe it's changed now, but I know like a lot of the jujitsu schools, like, yeah, come on by. We'll do training. We'll mix it up a bit, and so they're not so protective of their trade secrets or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool, cool. That's it's a fascinating world that you can get into with that, you know. I think I found one uh BJJ gym here in Utsunomiya where I live, and
Hmm.
um I found it on the internet. I just, typed in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Utsunomiya, in
Hmm.
Japanese, and
Yeah.
it came up. And then I searched for it on the map, and I looked at their website, and it seemed really good and legit and everything. Drove by the place where it's supposed to be on the map, and it was just a neighborhood with houses. And I go, I don't think this is it. And so I haven't been able to find it. I tried, and it's just almost seems like it's ethereal. So maybe it's mislabeled or something, but it's definitely um, something I'm still looking for.
Well, I'd say, I mean, if there's a phone number or an email address, I'd say give them a
Mhm.
call.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one thing to keep in mind is like a lot of these guys are probably really potentially very just like regular guys
Hmm.
who have done years of jujitsu and are like training people.
Hmm.
So they're not business savvy. They're not like marketing experts. They're not
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
technically minded at all. So
Yeah.
so I mean, maybe they put the wrong address in or something. So
Yeah.
that being said, of course, be careful. um,
Obviously. Yeah.
but I think for most people, it's very intimidating going in that first day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Now, are you the only non-Japanese at the school, or
I
because that
am.
has to be yeah, that has to be another level of intimidating. I mean, your Japanese level is obviously high enough to where you can communicate, but if
Mhm.
someone there's already the intimidation factor if you speak the language, but if there's a little bit of language barrier there, that could even be more intimidating for a lot of people, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember when I first called because I was kind of nervous about going,
Mhm.
and like I had like wrote out the script of what I would say on the phone to like introduce myself and everything, and
Yeah.
but in and I think most places and jujitsu not being an exception, like people have been generally welcoming.
Hmm.
No one's treated me too overtly different. And I think in something especially like jujitsu, where it is sort of it's a sort of meritocracy, like if you put in the work, if you're good, we'll say you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
In general, and I know not every place is like this, but I think generally that's been my experience with it. And also everybody's been there. Everybody's been a white belt or a beginner. So everybody has a sort of respect and understanding of what it takes to walk into that room
Hmm.
and be terrible
Yeah. Yeah.
and uncomfortable. So I think what I've seen is like uh, all the dojos I've been to have been very open to new people joining and being helpful and welcoming and soft
Yeah.
on the new
Yeah.
guys.
That's cool. It seems like it's a good community. Once you're in, it's it's very respectful, and
Hmm.
you get a good group of friends going there. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd
Well,
also
cool.
recommend for anybody like slightly interested is to go see a tournament.
Hmm.
There's tournaments all the time happening, all over Japan, and they're not really they're not designed for spectators.
Yeah.
Spectators, they're designed mostly for competitors. So, they're kind of fun to watch, and they're free, and so you can just kind of stop by and watch and check it out
Yeah.
and leave anytime you want. Um, but I think that might be a way too to sort of identify some schools that might be in your area, and even maybe if you see on the roster list, maybe that school that you were checking out, you could probably meet somebody from there
Right.
if they were participating in that tournament as well.
Right. Right. Well, cool. And that's good advice. Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you.
mm.
Yeah. So, Sonny,
Yes.
we're gonna wrap it up, bud. Eh, Before we go, what is one thing you would like to say to the people out there that are watching or listening?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's totally on the spot. I don't know. I have no, it just, I don't know. I'm gonna say something stupid like, live life, be happy. But,
You can
um,
say it.
yeah, live life, be happy if you can. I think everyone's trying to do that anyway. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Nothing in particular.
Okay, cool. So where can people find you online and if you want to promote anything, let us know.
I would love to. I wish I had something to promote. I really
Okay.
do. Um, I have been actively considering adding more videos to
Yep.
Japanarchist. So
Mm.
I think if people want to subscribe to that channel, they'd be notified
Okay.
of a
Yeah.
new video that come out. I do have Twitter on all those accounts and Facebook. I'm pretty much the only Japanarchist online. So
Yeah.
whatever your medium, I could be find at that, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever.
All right. Yeah. I'll have the links anyway in the show notes. But pretty easy to find you just by going to Google as well, because
Yeah.
the name. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, all right, Sonny. Well, I appreciate it, and thanks for being on.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.